Hey Dad, just thought you'd be interested in seeing this. I know how we were talking the other day when going to Grandma and Granddad's to help move about uh, ViewState, SessionState, and ApplicationState. So here's just an example of using ViewState. So this will be our website. This is called the Design View in Visual Studio. It lets you just like drag and drop things. So here's a text box, here's a button. When you click this button, it'll start counting from, it'll start at 0, and then when you click the button, it'll go 1, then click again 2. So yeah, here's the website. So you just click and it adds. So because we're using ViewState, it's able to keep this value within this window we have here, and then it's stored, and when we do a post request by clicking the button, it keeps getting added. So you can see the code here. These are just classes. These are, I think there's over 13,000 classes for C Sharp. They're kind of just like shortcuts, so you don't have to type out all the code all the time, and you can keep adding things there. But here, see, we've declared int clicks count equals 0. So we've stored. There's this variable here called clicks count. It's now being classified as an integer, and it's starting at 0. But here on page load, if it's not a post back, so if it's a get request, so if it's the first time we go on the website, then now we create this new object here called ViewState, and we're calling it clicks count, and we're also setting that equal to 0. By the way, these are not exactly the same. I don't believe they are, because this is case sensitive. So there's a capital C here and there's a lowercase there. These are different. But this text box right here is got an ID text box 1. So that will now equal whatever this ViewState clicks count is. To string just meaning it'll turn it into characters that the text box can read, which is a string. So when we first start the website, it'll show 0 in that form, in that text box, because of that. But now here's the code for the button 1. So when you click the button, this was some old code. This was just using clicks count, but because it's just using clicks count, I think it wasn't working because we weren't using ViewState, so it wasn't actually storing it. So here, this is how we resolve that issue. So we have clicks count, so which is started right here, the integer clicks count. Clicks count is now equal to ViewState clicks count. Basically, this is just converting ViewState, which is an object, into an integer 32, which it can recognize. So this integer right here is equal to the ViewState and integer, and this just means we're adding 1 to it. And then, so now it started at 0, so now it's going to equal 1 because we're adding 1. So now the text box is going to equal 1, clicks count to string. So it's going to convert that 1 into a string for the text box. And then just, we also have to reiterate now that the ViewState clicks count is going to be equal to this new value of clicks count, just because we need to store it here in the button click. So, and then when we click again, we'll have had this value of 1. So then clicks count becomes 1 again. You add another to it, so it becomes 2, and then the text box becomes 2. So what happens though when I have, because see, I have ViewState 1, that's the name of the project, and I also have ViewState 2, which is the same thing. We go to the code, and we'll notice it's the exact same thing here. So we try running this. Yeah, it's the same program. But now what happens when we open a new tab and we try to access it here? It just starts at 1 again. It doesn't save it. Now we can try going to the ViewState 1 project, but it's going to be exactly the same. Starts at 0 and counts up. Whereas this, so the ViewState stores the information in just a single tab. So now we've got SessionState here. Same thing. View the code. We'll notice now that instead of ViewState, we've got the word session. So instead of storing the value into a ViewState, we're sorting into a SessionState. And this is just some extra code that my teacher needed to add. If the session of it is equal to null, then it now equals 0. So I guess what this just means that like if it's not postback, so if it's the first time, the session will equal nothing, right? It'll be no value yet, so we'll just turn it into a value of 0. But then everything else is the same. We have clicks count, convert it from the session, add 1. So let's run this now. So it's working the same as before, but now if we go over to a new one, look, it's kept the value. So I'll add 7. Now if I go here, I'll click the button and it'll go to 8. And this works too even if I change it to SessionState 1 rather than SessionState 2, which is a different project file, but it's got the same code. So here's SessionState 1, turn to 9, SessionState 2 will become 10. But what happens now if I try to use this in Internet Explorer? So there's my SessionState 2. It starts at 0. The reason why this happens is because SessionState is just, your session is your user ID. So it's remembering that you're the same user. Even though you've got the different tabs, you're still using Google Chrome. So it'll still keep working. But if you're using Internet Explorer, it'll think you're a different user. So that's why it doesn't hold on to the value. So that's why now we do ApplicationState. So again, same thing, but now instead of session, it's now application. So we go run this. That's interesting. It's holding on to the value from previous file. Maybe I had something up before. Huh. See how this is 11. It must have been because I had done this before. The video, maybe my application was still running even though I closed it, so maybe it's holding on to a value. But anyway, see, we can do this in a new tab. It works just fine. 15 there, 16 there, and then now here's the big thing. We go to Internet Explorer, put that in, and it should equal 16. Then we can, yeah. So that's the difference. Application level is for global. It's global users. Any user can access it. SessionState is just a single user, so multiple tabs within the same browser, and ViewState is just one page, the one tab.